Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and glad to be again with you today. So for that panel discussion, I would just like to give a brief history of auctions in the emerald business. It's not new. I mean, what Sheffield is doing and has been doing for the last couple of years has been done before by Israeli traders, and Israel was very strong in emeralds, not only in Zambian emeralds, but they were also very strong in Colombian emeralds at the time, selling rough and cut stones because they had a very big cutting industry in Israel. And so, say 15 years, 20 years ago, it used to be, or even 25 years ago, there used to be some auctions of emeralds done in Israel with very, very successful results. And there were some other emerald auctions organized in Paris. Because Paris is, is the capital of luxury. Many luxury houses have their headquarters in Paris, and these auctions of Colombian emeralds at that time were very successful, also raising like $15, $20 million in a sale, $35 million sometime in a sale, in one sale, of top merchandise. People were coming from all over. Some lots were sold in rough. So some were sold in cut stones. I mean, not large parcels, but individual stones that really had high value were sold on auction in a cut and polished fashion. So there's never been an auction. There were an auction in '97 in Colombia. I don't know if Julius was in that auction at the Congress Colombian. There was an Emerald Congress in Colombia, and the Colombian government and industry wanted to hold an auction at this time. It was a failure. Why? I just don't know. It just didn't work. And people went to the conference, for the 3 days, 4 days conference, to get the people go to the auction. The Colombian government paid every fare and hotel. People came, but they didn't do it. Just came and looked. And they didn't do any business. Why? Again, I don't know the result. So this is just to rebound without making any other comments of what Jeremy said this morning and what Sean has been before. So there is a success story behind international auctions versus local auctions. That is all I can say. This is my experience and what I've seen. The figures are proving that the last auction held in Lusaka, it didn't work so much in terms of price per carat. So the price per carat is really what makes it the success of the auction. It's not the volume that you get out of total amount of sales. It is what you get per individual quality of gemstones. So now I will call for the any comments on that subject to my neighbor, Mr. Mulenga.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think like I said yesterday in the EITI presentation, the challenge that we have with the gemstone industry is the fact that by nature, all the technical knowledge, all the business knowledge is vested and is sitting with the industry. And the industry is very complex from what we've been educated between yesterday and today. Now, if you look at it from a perspective of government, from what we are learning here, doesn't have the big picture. Government doesn't know the intricacies of this industry. So if we look at it from that perspective, that's the reason why yesterday I was sharing that we need to create a platform of dialogue, and dialogue driven by the experts in the industry, like yourself, my brother, where we sit down with the key stakeholders, and by key stakeholders, I'm talking at different levels. You can start at the level of the policy makers, the decision makers, and the actors in the industry, to explain and share with them how the gemstone industry works. And Zambia being a copper industry, our government knows a lot about copper industry, but we know nothing about gemstone industry. Therefore, whilst this forum is an excellent forum to pour our hearts and blame the Zambian government decision to direct that auction should be done, I think all that should be understood from a perspective of the history of the country. And we have to be realistic in saying that the industry has done nothing to educate the country on how it runs its own industry. Now, these natural resources belong to Zambia, and they are supposed to be used for national development. And as such, in partnership with our investors, together we must create a win-win situation. And you are quite right now, the perception, and I emphasize the word perception, it's not facts. The perception is that gemstone companies take all the emeralds and they don't declare production and all the money is hidden. So the reaction that you have seen from the government, it's natural to feel, let's stop this road. We cannot be going out in the broad world and borrowing money when we have gemstones where we could create value. So I would like to appeal to all of us that our outlook should be, let's be educated by the experts. Let them tell us the complexities and the intricacies and the adverse effects of the decisions that have been made. And let them share with us and propose to say, in order to grow this industry, I mean, it's very impressive what Sean just shown us, the effort that Gemfields have made in marketing the Zambian emerald in the world, and it's a child. We need to nurture this child. And to nurture the child, the mother has to teach us how to nurture the child. So we, as the Zambian people, we are the father, we are not the mother. So in our case, as an example, Gemfield is the mother. The mother must tell the father what kind of milk the baby wants. So I believe, let's look at it in that perspective, and it always pays to obey the laws of the land. If the country has said they've cancelled auctions, obey and do what they want you to do. If you fight them, they continue with their suspicion. So let's work together. That's the reason I'm here from EITI, because I have a passion for the mining industry. And I believe together, putting our heads together, we can find a situation which is going to benefit all of us. I think that will be my first comment. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to add to what I said before, because I mentioned about the auction. It's really, exchange is not an auction. The exchange, I've been trying in other countries also. I mean, in Colombia, again, to give that as an example, for 15 years, some people in the industry wanted to build up an exchange, like a bourse. But whatever intent that they had, like this congress that they made in '97 was a flop. And instead of that, there are districts that develop commercial platforms in which companies, registered companies, set up offices. They're in regulation, they're completely abiding with the laws, and they usually regroup themselves in a building or in a few streets behind, I mean, close one to each other for security purposes, but not necessarily in the boards. You know, in our trade, people don't like to see what the other person pays for a parcel. It's really something. The deals are made really, I would say, with a certain secrecy and discretion, because there is no fixed price again for the gemstone. So you may have a customer paying 100 and another paying 200 for the same kind of material. So it really needs to go from one place to another. But those commercial platforms, you may call that exchange if you want, they're not regulated normally. They are just free market, open to everybody, and it's a place where the small miner or the small dealer, as long as his registers, can go and find a customer. He can go from one office to the other, present his merchandise, find a market, whether it's a trader that is registered and can export to his own customer, or whether it's a foreign customer, a buyer that is in the country looking for certain merchandise. So this is my experience with what is an exchange. We call that buying platform, buying center instead of exchanges. And what I heard just now, Sean proposed to do in that area close to Kerjam is a very good idea. wondering if this wouldn't be legalizing the theft. That's just a question that I'm asking. You know, it's okay to have a no question asked bring any merchandise, but then that may be encouraging the thieves to get the merchandise and bring it into the platform with no question asked. That is just one question that I'm raising. The next would be I don't know. Okay, the next would be Julius. Okay, whatever. This I'm reading like this. Shall I?
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, about auctions. I come from Ida Oberstein, and we are a traditional gemstone cutting center the last 500 years. And we have a lot of cutters there. We had still more before. And we have a tradition of auctions more than 100 years. More than 100 years we are auctioning gemstones, but where? In Ida, at the place of the buyers. And we were, until now, very successful. The producers exported their stones to the local importers or traders. They prepared the auctions, and in this auction, all the customers, at that case in Europe, was mostly people from Ida, from our area, because in Europe there's not so many industries, came to the auction and come to the auctions and gave the highest offer they ever could give. And there was 100 years successful, but it was made at the buyer's, customer's place. If these auctions would have been held, and our traditional supplier in former times was mostly Brazil, if this auction would have been held in Brazil, for example, there would have been a failure. But the auctions were held and are held, now they are very few because our industry has become very small. But in the good times of our industry, we had more than 10,000 cutters. Still, when I was vice president of the German Gemstone and Diamond Association, we had still a list of 500 companies and more than 8,000 cutters. This is some potential, you see. And then when we had our auctions, they were a big success. But I recommend you, auctions have to go where the customers are. And the customers will not come where the stones are. This is my opinion on that. Thank you.
So now I would like to call Mr. Litana. Please.
Thank you. Very little to say on the matter. Most of it has been said by Sixtus. Very well said. Today I call him 7 stars, not 6 stars. I know it's very difficult for government to decide whether it's good to have local auctions or auctions outside until they try it. The first auction has been held. What I expect now is that discussions should be held. A post-mortem rather should be taken to see what has happened on this local auction compared to what has been received when the auction is held outside. I'm privileged to sit on a committee that has been appointed, an advisory committee that has been appointed to advise on the same thing, on the auctioning of stones locally or outside. We cannot say now because the post-mortem has not been taken. I'm here to sit and listen. Kajem are the players of the auctions. They are now giving us their views, which I'm taking in. I'll present to the meeting, and maybe after that we'll have something to say. For now, I think that's what I'll say.
I have just one question, and is what is the interest of having the auctions held in Zambia? If it's working perfectly in perfect places like Singapore, which is very close to Hong Kong, it really brings the big players to the place because this is where the money is. Money is not in Zambia. I mean, players and buyers are around this part of the world. And you can get big investors just coming to an auction because it's closed in a secure place and it's the place where auctions are being held. So what are we trying to gain by bringing the auction in Zambia? Better price? I don't think so. Difficulties to reach the place. Yes, it is very difficult to come here. I almost didn't come here because it was so difficult to come to. I was in Beijing, then I had to go to Paris, and from Paris I had to come here, and then I had to go back to Colombia. It took me 4 days to come and go back from here. So it's very, very difficult. This is why I couldn't come to Zambia before, because it was too complicated for me to come from where I was. So this is also affecting, I think, foreign investors, green buyers, really serious investors. And I think this is what the marketing strategy of a company like Genfit have been trying to do. Get the best material to where the best money is. I mean, you need to service your customers. And servicing the customer is how you get the best prices for your product. It's not making it complicated for your customer to come to the product. This is not a product that people need. We need to sell a product. They don't need our product necessarily. This is an investment opportunity when they see it. We need to show it to them. So this is my conclusion about where to hold an exchange.
I think
Hold an auction, sorry.
I think I'd like to make a comment from what Jean, you're saying. First of all, we live in a global village.
Yes.
Zambia is as good a country as any other country. So you cannot be telling us that it's so difficult place to get to. The one who wants an emerald cannot come to Zambia. Why did you come to mine our emerald?
Come on, Mr. Mulenga.
Okay?
So I agree with that.
So let's be realistic. I'm a mining person with enormous experience in mining. I've been in mining for over 35 years. I've worked across the world. We know what we have as Zambians. So don't talk to us and try to patronize us and tell us like we don't know what we are doing. So the point is very clear. The resource belongs to Zambia. Zambia must benefit. You cannot be talking about you know better about our social well-being than we want to be. So we need to remove this patronizing attitude of where the Western world thinks they know what is good for us Africans. They can take our materials and use them and create value, and we should remain in poverty. So let's be very, very careful. We are a people, we are an independent state. We know our value. We know what God endowed with us. We want to be partners with our investors. What we are doing in EITI is to create an enabling environment for our investor. That's what we are doing. I was very happy when my brother here shared the knowledge about the diamond industry. And he compared the diamond industry to the emerald industry. And we learned facts that some of us don't know. So let's share the knowledge that the investor has in the context of how do we grow this industry. Zambian people are good people. Now, if the gemstone industry had been progressive as you want to pretend you have been, how come you never made an effort to educate the Zambian people of how best to develop the industry and grow it internationally? The reason the government has put that decision is because you have shown no interest in sharing information. If you ask a government or institution and you say, how much, what was the carats of gemstones mined in Zambia? Nobody knows. No. It's very embarrassing. Nobody knows. And as EITI, we had to struggle. We had to struggle to try and get information about production figures. You are told, no, we have no records. Now, how are you running an industry with no records? You get my point? So this is why this thing has come to the way it is. It has reached the boiling point because poverty in Zambia is too deep. Lufanyama is a bush. But your companies are making millions of dollars and declaring super profits. Look at Lufanyama. People are sitting in poverty. Let's have a conscience. I'm a capitalist myself, but I practice capitalism with a conscience, where you care about where you take your resources and you create a win-win situation. And I believe that time has come. with your expertise on the international global market, with the expertise of our friends from Instead, with your expertise, let's put our heads together. And as my big brother, Mr. Litana, said, there is an institution, with a commission that has been set up. Let's take the positive look and say, how do we promote this industry? How do we support gem fields with the efforts it's making to market the Zambian gem in the world, so that 10 years, 20 years from now, the Zambian gem will be the best in the world. That's how we should put our mind to. Let's move away from this blame thing on the Zambian people and the Zambian government. So I'd like to pause there. Thank you.
Yeah, what I want to, since I think he was pointing at me as patronizing, I just want to make it clear, not patronizing at all. And my questions were saying that the profit of those sales made abroad is directly for Zambia. It's a Zambian company. KGen is not a foreign company. And I understand that the government has 25%, and all the proceeds to the last cents is coming back to this country. So this isn't profitable to the country, to the extension of the mining industry here, because it gives an example. And I can tell you something, Zambia has taken back 4 or 5% of the market that people had in Colombia and Brazil. And it's because of the emerald industry and the marketing that has been done. I was just giving an example of good marketing, not foreign companies or whatever. It's a good marketing point. And when I mentioned as an example what happened in Colombia, it was the Colombian government and the industry bringing the material abroad to get a better price. It was just the country making a better benefit. It was not intervention from foreign capital. So this is not patronizing. I'm just giving example that I've lived throughout my experience in my life of what has happened and why I personally think that getting closer to the customer as a Zambian company is better than try to bring a customer close to you. It's always difficult to bring the customers close to the mine. It's better for the mine to get the products to the customer. This is marketing definition of a good business sense. This is what I think. Mr. Petsch, please.
Excuse me, please. Look, Zambia belongs to the Zambians. There's no doubt at all. But I can tell you only one thing. Zambian emerald today is a very valuable gemstone. And it has become in the last years only so high priced because the auctions were not in Zambia, because the auctions were brought near to the customer. Thanks to the commercial politics of Champion and Kajam, prices have gone up in Zambian emeralds so high, incredible. I am a member of a group who buys also Zambian emeralds. I'm going to tell you something. The same stones we bought 4 years back for $150,000, I speak in kilos, it's easier. We are prepared to pay now, and we pay it on the auctions, $1 million. We would not have done this if this would have been a small market somewhere in a small country. They have improved so much the quality and the reputation of the Zambian emerald we should be proud of. And Zambians are not staying behind because they get the money directly from the auction at home, here into Zambia in the bank, and they can dispose of in all and many matters. So because of these auctions outside, prices have risen so much because of a very clever sales policy, which you never could have made here. Thank you very much.
Well, I'll just give you an example. Like, imagine a luxury jewelry store. You know, emeralds are luxury products. Do you think they would open a store in a small village in the middle of a country, even if the people are good in this country, they're good hard-working farmers, there would not be a market. They would not open the store. They would open the store where the market is. So this is, again, a kind of comparison. We need to bring your product where the market is, closer to the customer that really have the money to spend and make you grow. This is all that I have to say as a conclusion. Thank you.
Our colleague from Investec shared with us about Botswana. And Botswana is an excellent example to follow. He talked about certification and the Kimberley process. Those are the kind of things we want to hear. Because what we would like to do here, we want investors. That's the bottom line. Zambia needs investors. But to have investors, investors must have honesty and integrity and accountability. Then that way we create a win-win situation. Because we are operating in the global market, we have to put in place international best practices. And that can only come about if people with knowledge are able to share with us, to say, look, this thing you are doing of auctioning in Osaka or what, no, you are missing the point. The best way for you to make value and to make Zambia competitive is if you do X, Y, Z. And demonstrate. We are reasonable people who sit around and say, we thought maybe it was a question of selling tomatoes and sweet potatoes. Oh, it's different. Okay, but let's put our heads together so that we have an audit trail. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, there is no audit trail on the Zambian gemstone. As part of my job in EITI, I was given the responsibility to trace. You can't trace these things. There's no data, there are no records. You get my point? Yes, we have good companies like Gemfields who are doing everything to raise the standards. We have Grizzly to raise the standards. But I'm sure you know there is another world there, which all of us don't know. And we don't know what is there, it's just a cloud, it's a smoke. So, what we need to do together, the investors, and Gemfield is a pioneer, is a champion. And I commended Sean yesterday and said, well done for having organized this summit. It's what Zambia needs.
Yes.
Yeah. So we are debating here, but let's, outside this, let's sit down with the investors, because we don't want investors to make losses because of what changes we are making. But let's do it in a manner that Zambians are going to benefit. Physical benefit, something you can see. Yesterday I gave an example of Lufanyama. If what Sean shared with us and said Gemfields has become now the largest emerald mining company, if I use the right word, in the world. No, for God's sake, how can, if you become the largest, you are coming from the bush? Where is your social conscience? The road from Kalulushi to Lufanyama is a dust road. There are huts around this super best mine in the world. Who cares? Because the local villager just says, this is where they dig our stones and take them to Europe. So let's be honest with ourselves. What have we done as a company to create so that there is a social license to operate, so that people feel good? If Lufanyama 10, 20 years from now was developed into a beautiful modern town and people were pointing out, you know what, all this is because of great partnership the government has got between Grizzly and Gemfields. This is what stones can do for Zambia. I'm not asking that the mining company should build a town. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying, let's create an environment and a system where revenues, tax revenues, fair taxes are paid in a transparent manner, and we force from ourselves as citizens of Zambia, the Zambian government to use that money to develop Lufanyama. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying mining companies should go and build a town. All I'm saying, let's see the value of the stones that you pick. Right now, we don't see it. The man in the street doesn't see it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just want to say, I'm sorry you were not there yesterday when there was a presentation of the United Nations project in certification and traceability of visibility from the chain down from the mine to the export point, and certification of the country by the government to raise the value and the recognition of the product and the ethical source of supply. So this is something that we need to discuss.
Yes.
Okay, so that's it. I just wanted to make that clear because Mr. Mulenga was not there yesterday, so maybe he only hears what I'm saying about the auction and not the other part of the story.
Yeah, thank you. I'm listening. I'll continue listening. Yesterday we were given some figures of what was raised on the auction that was held outside of first grade emerald. And we were given figures of what was raised here in Zambia when the auction was held here. That comparison doesn't hold. You're comparing what was raised when you sold first grade emerald and what was raised when you sold low grade emerald in Zambia. That doesn't help us at all. What probably would help is follow this up by selling first grade emerald in Zambia, and let's see what that compares with what you sold outside. Then we would be starting somewhere. This business, I agree with Sixtus again, of saying, come to Zambia, we cannot raise much. When you are a good football player, you win your game wherever you're asked to play. In Brazil, Levi Mwanawaza Stadium, anywhere. If you are a good football player, venue doesn't matter at all. We don't know what went wrong with this auction that was held here. We don't know yet. Was it accommodation, hotel accommodation, travel, and things like that? It was the first auction that was held here. I think it's a little bit too early to judge. That's why I said we will listen for now. And then maybe later on we'll advise.
I think so.
Well, I think everything been said. Or anybody has a question? Yes. Okay.
Hi, my name is Rita and I've been in this business for the last 20 odd years. I do not agree when you say this is the first time the auction is held in Zambia. We've had emerald auctions in Zambia from 1991. And if I may say so, that it's the same people from Jaipur who attend these auctions because they are the ones who specialize in cutting the Zambian emerald. So whether you hold it in Singapore or you hold it in Zambia, it'll be the same people, whether you held it 20 years back or you hold it now, it's exactly the same group of people. And yes, they've been coming to Zambia. Zambia is a very safe place, and I don't see any reason why we should not be coming to Zambia, because they all have been coming to Zambia for years and years. Thank you.
To reply to that question, does the Zambian industry, emerald industry, only want to sell to Jaipur, or do they want to open the auction to other players? It's not only Jaipur. Jaipur traditionally has been dealing with emerald, with Zambian emerald, but I can tell you that China is becoming another player. They're opening industrial parks. They're training people to cut emeralds, and there will be players in the game. So of course they can come and buy here. But I'm not sure Jaipur is the only place where that will be buying. Hopefully for the trade and for your industry, you cannot only sell to a place. It will be open to other players. And so far it was, because it was, yes, I agree with you, but the world is changing and the balance of power is changing too. The Israelis may want to come back into the business. The problem is that Israel had a higher cost of cutting. This is where they were not in the business of Zambian emerald, but it's still a little bit. So this is just a comment that I want to say. It's not only just on that what you said. I agree. The place, I may be wrong. It may be as successful in try it in Lusaka. It's not. I think it would not be. But again, my comment was to what you said. Jaipur may not be the only place in the future. You want to raise prices by having more customers, more places to reach, and more people to invest into the Zambian. That is what will make the price raise and the recognition of the product raise also.
Yeah, but are we saying, yes, I agree, Jaipur is not the only market, but are we saying it's difficult to bring those other people to Zambia? China, you've mentioned, is it difficult to bring them to Zambia? I can see them rushing here in millions.
Yeah, I've got a question or a comment on the same. The question is, what is the issue here? Is it the auction or selling direct? Because we've got other people who are selling direct, there's no issue. I agree with the customer, the price that he can pay for that emerald, there's no issue. But someone who is selling through auction, because it is open, it has become an issue. That's a question. And even a simple marketing principle. We've seen our brothers, like here in Lusaka, they are coming from Kabwe bringing chap, they are bringing to the market. Even in Rufwanyama, if you go to Mpongwe, they move kilometers to bring chako to the market because they have to realize a good value from the market, where the market is. They are not selling their chako from the farm, or they are not selling their pumpkins from the farm, they are taking to the market. So the question here is, what is it that we want to achieve by banning the auction? Because the auction, the results are made public, people are bidding competitively, and that's how the value is being driven up. But if you go like a closed market, you agree with an individual, I can assure you will not be able to get a good price out of that because you just agree. And that's where the issue of transfer pricing comes in. And that's a risk. Thank you.
You see, my brother, the point is that we as Zambians, we have to develop our country using our resources. Gemstone is one of those key resources we have. For, I don't know how many years we've been mining gemstone, but I'm sure for over 50 years. There is no gemstone industry in Zambia. We must be ashamed as Zambians. We have the raw material, but we have no industry. So, the next generation, we have to think about our children and our grandchildren. Using the natural resources we have, we must start building an industry. But doing that industry using the best international practices and working in partnership with international investors. Because we cannot just be a source where people pick stones and go and make them great somewhere else. And nothing remains in our country. We can't. Not in 2020 and not in 2013 and on beyond. So I think the step that has been taken is a good step because it provides us a platform. Yes. A platform for dialogue. Honest and direct dialogue. And that's what we are going to have. And out of that, we'll come up with something that protects the industry. Because we don't want to kill the industry. No. That's the bottom line. We don't want to, and I'd like investors to rest assured, Zambia does not want to kill the investor, does not want to kill the industry. All it's asking is let's work together and come up with something where there is a win-win situation, where there is transparency and accountability. Transparency and accountability. Right now, the gemstone industry is seen as mystique. It's all wishy-washy. When you say in Kitwe, for instance, oh, that one is in the gemstone industry, the first thing people say, they think is a crook. It has even a personality characteristic. If somebody says I've got an emerald, we immediately think this is not somebody to trust. We have to change that. Thank you.
Just a special mention to everybody on the panel and to anybody putting questions across. We have 10 minutes for this discussion before our tea break. So please be mindful of that in the way you ask the question, and we can summarize, we can praise you. I'm sure we're all capable of that. The same goes to those answering the questions. So to the lady in the brown polka dot, she has the microphone. And then,
Thank you so much. I think what Gemfield is doing right now is very commendable. They're trying to market Zambian gemstone across the world, and we can't take that away from them. But then again, as they're marketing the products outside Zambia, also have to grow the Zambian flag also. So the auctioning of the gemstone around the country is not a bad idea. But also, we're still studying the case, and people have to be patient. That a combination of local and international marketing will also help enhance the country as a whole, not just Zambian gemstone outside Zambia, but also Zambia locally.
My name is Joseph Nonde from Zambia Revenue Authority. What I want to say on this issue is the fact that we need to understand that the figures in terms of the revenue that the government is getting from the industry are not pleasing at all. And since the benchmark that the government has set to measure the performance and the return that they can get from a sector is the revenue in forms of taxes, if those figures are not pleasing to the government, then the government will take a particular interest in the sector to see how best they can realize the return from there.
Yes.
So it is justified for the government to pay attention to this sector and see how best it can improve. But because from what we've heard from yesterday and today, we are dealing with a sector which is very disorganized, there is no order in it. In trying to revamp this sector, we understand that yes, there are going to be casualties. And unfortunately, in the government trying to improve this sector, the casualties seems to be Kajam who are doing very fine. So what Kajam needs to do is to continue dialogue, because the government will never going to make a law that will only advantage the major player in the industry. That would be a very bad law. If we can make a law that will make only Kajam continue making revenue, we are not doing ourselves a service. What will happen when the day Kajam will decide to go? Then we'll remain with the mess that has been there. So to clean up the mess, as the government has indicated, it will involve a lot of changes, and those also involve Kajam being affected. What Kajam should do is to look at the strategies that they can use to mitigate the effects of the changes that the government is bringing in trying to improve the sector in the gemstone industry. Otherwise, as long as we continue having these problems of poor revenue, Kajam needs to also take the blame and also be affected by the changes that are there. That's my contribution.
May I just come in a little bit there? Something is not coming out there. You see, a decision has been made by government that we should auction here. Before government can be advised whether to continue with that or no, we need a few more views. Mr. Moderator, I think, if necessary, give us a little bit more time on that, because it is quite a big issue. We want to know if for those people who are saying Zambia is not suitable for auctioning, we want to know why. There must be a few things that you can point to say it's not advisable to auction emerald here. That is not what I'm getting here.
What I said regarding this is not that it's not a suitable place to come and buy. It's that it's far from the customers. That's all I'm saying. And by just stopping the auction, there was an auction that had been announced widely, worldwide, in 2 weeks' time in Singapore. Canceling this auction is going to send a very, very confusing signal to the international investors and the international community. They will not understand. And I can tell you that I'm expecting a further fall on the actual Gemfield, which is not the Gemfield, but a big confusion and image impact on Zambia. What is happening in Zambia? A private company that is capitalistic, invested with protection of laws in Zambia, is being told by the government that they cannot proceed with their marketing strategy, which is not in the law. I think it's only a directive. So this is a mixed signal that I just want to point as a warning, because my opinion is just telling you what I think the other people outside speak. I'm like a speaker of the outside world. I'm not interfering into what you want to do. Just saying, careful.
Yeah, I think that's why we are speaking for Zambia also. Okay, the point is that if a government in the land makes a law, any good corporate entity must follow that law. Now, what we are having is a situation where you deliberately don't want to follow the law. The government made it very clear and said auctions will be done in Zambia. And therefore, you are supposed to publish wherever you do your business that from now onwards, we'll do our auctions in Zambia. But if you leave things the way, then you want to create a negative image on Zambia and say, oh, that auction we had in country X has to be cancelled because the Zambian government has changed the law. You are not helping the situation. You are exacerbating the situation. We all know, we've been in industry, we know that if your game plan was to make what the Zambian government to do fail, you pretend and you make negative vibes. We've been through that before. So that's why we are saying, let's operate in a transparent and accountable manner where let's find a solution to this quickly. So that the announcement that is made, government needs to get facts, not illusions.
Yes. I have only a simple question. is the law already public that auctions must be only done in Zambia, or is it only a proposal?
It's not yet. It's not yet. I think it's not yet passed. I want to speak about the sector just a little through the statements that I'm getting from there. It's really a mess to look back. I think this is why government is a little skeptical into allowing these auctions now going outside. If we talk about Kajam itself, from the time it was they assumed major shareholders, it's changed hands from this company to the other. And you would find that, according to the records, when Gemfields took over, the company was going under, which is true. But unfortunately, the people that were running Kajam then, the company which was going under, are some of the richest people in the world today, out of the Zambian Emirates. Okay? So it's like government was being cheated. Here's the company that is going under, but the people that were running it, it's a common known factor, the Guptas, are some of the richest people in India today, and not because of anything else, because of the Zambian Emirates. The Israelites that were shareholders in Kajam, I don't know if they pulled out or whatever happened, they are some of the richest people in Israel out of the Zambian Emirates. So government is now thinking, where are we headed to with this industry? So I think one way they thought was that if we auction our emeralds locally, it will benefit the Zambian economy, one, through tourism, attracting investment. Probably some people would come and say, I would also want to invest into emerald mining by following up to where the product, you say it's not a product, I'll call it a product for a while, where the product is. And eventually we'll get to where Singapore is, because Singapore started from somewhere for people to know that that's the best market where the buyers are. I'm not for the idea of auctioning emeralds locally completely. I'm for the idea that it should be circulating. But like Mr. Litana said, Zambia should not only be powered or auctioned with low-grade emeralds. No. Let's have the high-grade marketed here, the low-grade in Singapore, and we keep on circulating. As the calendar moves on, the big buyers will be able to know that we should also follow or chase for the emeralds in Zambia. Number two, there are private companies that are operating in Zambia. They don't auction, they don't do their auctions. They sell direct to their buyers. We've known of some of the biggest buyers that don't even come to auctions, Gemfields, Kajam auctions, but they come to Zambia to buy emeralds, and that's a fact.
Mr. Petsch is one of them.
So I don't see any reason why it shouldn't work when we have big buyers.
I think just to summarize on those points for the sake of...
okay, so...
Yes, as I've just mentioned, I think to summarize on those points so that we can move on to our next contribution.
Okay, so let's have our emeralds to benefit on a long-running basis where Zambia is also included on the calendar of good quality emerald auctions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Can I, as a completely external observer, but somebody who feels very passionately, and I heard what Mr. Mulenga says, and I respect that the Zambian people need to benefit. 100% agree with you. As an external observer, it is also true that Zambia is one of the biggest copper producers in the world. It does not sell its copper in Zambia. It sells it on the London Metal Exchange or international markets. There's also no copper processing facilities in Zambia either. There's no wire manufacturing, no pipe manufacturing, no nothing. So we have to get this into perspective. The second thing is, with forcing, as my friend over here just mentioned, forcing one participant, unfortunately it's Kajam, it's Gemfields, Zambia's champion, to do emerald auctions in Zambia is not, I don't have a particular problem, other than I think you should always take your product to market, which is not in Zambia, but it is you have to force the entire industry, not just one player, to focus their product through one auction in Zambia. You cannot penalise one player. That is why the markets are worried.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we're finished with the subject. That was a very good conclusion. Thank you.